So I was feeling bad about myself and about my parenting skills, and I said so. I was sitting in my monthly 2-hour session with my Soul Matters group here at the church, and we'd been discussing this month's packet with the theme, what does it mean to be a people of tradition? And one of the questions for discussion in the packet, the one that hooked me the most that night, was, what one tradition do you want to pass on to your children? I feel like a failure, I told my group. I'm just not sure I've been passing on any traditions to my daughters. But even as the words came out of my mouth, I knew that wasn't true, and my group knew it wasn't true as well. They said, perhaps I'm just not aware of the traditions Susan and I have been passing on. So I've been thoughtful about that in the days that have followed that meeting, and I've been thinking about the traditions of my family, the rituals, big and small, that are a part of our daily lives. And I can see how much I had been missing, or maybe it is just refusing to see. Each day of our lives together is filled with ritual that may one day be thought of as tradition. Before the day has even started, the rituals at our house begin with 3-year-old Claire calling out, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," so that I will come into her room and click on the light of her pillow pet or get her a drink. Sometimes this ritual happens more than once a night. Next, 11-year-old Leah's morning routines begin and a drive to her school with our regular banter. What will be special today, I ask. Claire and I share daycare drop-off rituals too, moments that we both appreciate, I think, naming the friends she will see that day, running together up the walk to the front door of the daycare, a hug and a kiss and a hug. After school, after work, more routines, sometimes with me, too often without. Some regular family meal times together, at least when Susan and I are both home. Evening rituals of swinging on the tree swing, or family walks, or dance parties in the living room, or Wii games. And then bedtime begins. Oh my, bedtime. So many rituals around bedtime. The whole family participates. 11-year-old Leah is a good sport. She is the horsey that Claire rides every night, that dies and is pushed off the bed into the carpeted river below. Then there is jumping and sister cuddling and the I Need an Armpit song and good night and good morning, and then the reading of books, many books. And then finally, the light goes off and Daddy creaks down the stairs to have a ritual beverage and to spend a few minutes in conversation with Mommy before one or both of us falls asleep in front of the TV. Who am I kidding? Tradition in the Stringer house abounds. I'm guessing it probably does at your house too, no matter who you live with, but especially if you have young children at home with you. Our rituals will change as we all age in my house, just as they already have many times over, just as they have in the places you call home. And I'll admit I haven't always seen them as traditions in the making, especially when I've been preoccupied with work or with worry. I've seen these routines more as daily chores, as things to just get through, rather than lifting them up in my mind and in my heart as the treasured practices they are, as the rituals that make us a family, whether we acknowledge them as traditions yet or not. Fatigue can do that. It can lead us to miss the beauty of what is already there. It can lead us to yearn for a break from all the routines and the responsibilities that we one day will wish we could revisit. It may be premature to call the rituals we share with our families and friends traditions. Technically speaking, tradition is only tradition if it's passed down from generation to generation. And this distinction is one of the reasons I probably didn't see my family's routines as traditions, at least not initially. Thinking of my own childhood, I have often assumed that I have carried forward very few traditions from my family. But after more reflection, I can see that I am not as in control of my own choices and preferences as I may want to believe that I am. The truth is, for better or for worse, much of who and what I am is a product of the generations that came before me and the traditions that they passed to me. I'm reminded of this every time I get together with my extended family. We all live so far apart from each other, and I see how many common practices and perspectives we share. Catchphrases that only make sense if you grew up in my house, expectations that we have about birthdays and holidays and even sick days that grow from our family habits, our inclinations toward how we engage with our neighbors, our opinions about money or food. So many things have been influenced by our families and, in turn, the generations that have come before. This is not to say that each of us has not developed our own unique takes on these traditions. And of course, those of us in blended families have been influenced by the traditions of our in-laws. I also know that sometimes the rituals we create with our families have been inspired by what we feel we did not receive growing up. This is a familiar theme I've heard when meeting with families to prepare memorial services. Often people have created practices of loving attention for their families because they remember the void that they felt when they were neglected or overlooked as children. They want their families to be different. They want to create new traditions. Still, even these new traditions of repair, we could call them, have been inspired by the traditions of the past. Indeed, all traditions are built upon the foundations of what we did and did not receive. All of it matters as we seek to inhabit lives of intention and attention. Meg Cox is a journalist and the author of the Book of New Family Traditions. She researched lots of families and the different rituals and traditions that they share. And she reminds us, in ritual, little is big. It's the everyday traditions that determine how we experience our families. Through rituals and traditions as simple as intentional bedtime and dinner routines, she says, we build the bond of our joined identities, defining our relationships by acting them out. Our family rituals and traditions, no matter how we find them, provide comfort and security for us. They teach us skills. They help families pass on our values. Rituals can also be used to solve problems. Certainly many of our current Stringer family rituals arose from moments when we were challenged with how to navigate something. For example, how to get Claire to bed in less than 30 minutes. Other benefits of rituals can be navigating change or healing from loss or trauma. After my father-in-law, John, died in 2004, for many years, whenever the family would gather, we would share a moment together, usually before a meal, during which we would thank him. Each person would get to speak, though not everyone did every time. This ritual is not as common now that more than a decade has passed since his death, but it was very important to us early on, as it helped us acknowledge his absence and share our love with him, for him, and with each other and with the youngest generation. And you know, almost as if on cue, I was at my wife's family's house last night for dinner. Cousins and aunts and uncles were there. And we got to the part of the meal where we would typically say a grace, and for some reason it began with a toast. Let's have a toast. And the 8-year-old, who was not even alive when John was, said, "Oh, we have to toast Papa." I was like, "Gus, you're like illustrating my sermon. It's beautiful." Now, not every family's attempt to create rituals to navigate loss is welcomed, though. I know this from experience. A few years after my mother's death, which came suddenly when I was in college, so suddenly, in fact, that it seemed in retrospect that we barely had a memorial service for her, I began to feel that we had missed an opportunity to truly honor her and the life that we had shared. And so I took what felt like a risk to suggest in an email to my older brother that we create a ritual of remembrance for her. I said in the message that it might help us find some closure. As I recall, my brother's short reply came quickly. He wrote, I think closure is psychobabble. And that was it. Now, to those familiar with family systems, my brother's response was predictable. Whenever we take a position outside of our role in the family, as I did in that email, we can expect that the system will react in equal force in opposition to whatever we have done or suggested. In our family, you see, my mother was the ritual leader. She was the one who initiated grace at meals. She's the one who made holidays special. She's the one who created the few family traditions that we had, including going to church. Had I known more about family systems when I sent my brother that email, I would have expected that my attempt to introduce a ritual would cause a negative reaction. And I would have been better prepared to give voice to my own needs, even amidst the pushback. But at that time, my brother's simple response hit me like a punch in the gut. And not wanting a fight, I just backed away. I think now that may have been a mistake. My brother had a right to be reactive to my suggestion and to question the use of the word closure. I mean, what is closure anyway? I just wish I would have had the courage at the time to not avoid the conversation, to write back or to call him to say, yeah, okay, so closure may not be the right word, but can we do something together anyway? I'd really like to. As a minister, these many years later, I've witnessed the importance of ritual for families following loss. I've seen the value of people being invited to participate even when they may prefer to turn away. And I've been inspired by the ways family members can turn toward each other, especially when life gets tough. I have seen how, as Meg Cox writes, rituals can slow time and heighten our senses, enabling us to intensify and deepen our family ties. Most of the rituals and traditions we come to treasure in the families of our lives are not as intense as those we create when someone dies, and they do not typically involve a lot of preparation or difficult conversations. In fact, they are more likely the simple practices that we share that enable us to just have fun together, to celebrate our lives, to express our love and care for one another. Researchers have asked kids what they will remember most from their childhood, and they've reported that they won't remember the fancy gifts and big celebrations as much as they will remember the simple rituals of everyday life, the rituals of presence that their families have shared, the regular conversations and the activities that we often take for granted, the weekly game night, the annual trip to the state fair, the family meetings, games of catch after supper, ice cream or frozen yogurt after recitals or sports, the ways of marking the first and last days of school, reading together, attending church services or events. Any of the activities that we share that are made special by the spirit and consistency in which they are approached is what will be remembered most. When I think of my own parents, I know this is true. Of course, I remember holidays and the occasional vacation, but even more, I remember our meals together. I remember cooking and doing the dishes with my mom. I remember going to movies and games with my dad, and I remember going to church, even though I'm sure I complained about it at the time. And you don't have to have children of your own at home to receive the blessings of creating traditions through rituals of the everyday. I've admired how our next door neighbors have adopted our children as grandchildren, how they share their own rituals with our kids and with us, from sharing cookies and bread to setting aside time for backyard chats. Again, all that is needed, I think, is attention to our lives. And when we do this, when we notice the people around us and we claim them as our own, everyone benefits. And we can create rituals for ourselves too. Just ourselves, regular practices that awaken us to the present moment, the ways we greet and end the day, how we approach our morning shower, or write in our journal, or exercise, the ways we choose to meditate or to pray, mindful cooking and eating. These activities approached with intention and attention can help us, as our opening words said, accept this day as the gift that it is, a reason for rejoicing. They can open us up to the beauty of life in its most simple forms. And when we live intentionally, gratefully, mindfully, we can elevate the mundane to the magical. There's a quote I found in a book called How to Bury a Goldfish, which is about ceremonies and celebrations that can be found in everyday life. The authors write, "In the everyday events of our lives, we express who we are. When we rush through our day focused only on our destination, we are not fully alive, not able to see and savor the precious moments that fill our daily lives. Letting water cleanse us in the morning, acknowledging coworkers instead of hurriedly racing past to our offices, sitting quietly around a table at twilight, lighting a candle before each meal. Every day offers us rich opportunities for renewal." In thinking about how to transform our activities into meaningful rituals, Meg Cox suggests there are 3 goals we could meet. The first is to ensure that we have rituals of connection with the families of our lives. Do you have regular practices of greeting or saying goodbye to those you live or work with? These can be some of the most simple rituals. Our 3-year-old is a great teacher for our family. She has never seen a hug that she didn't want to make a group hug. Where are the spaces for greetings, if not group hugs, in your life? Can you find more? The second is to be intentional about all major milestones, accomplishments, and holidays. Each time a milestone occurs, like graduation, can we find a way to ritualize it by choosing something special to eat or to do or to say together to celebrate? Can we learn to see that every holiday offers us an opening to connect with our extended families in some simple way? And can we always be looking for yet another event worthy of celebration? In families, maybe it's a good grade or an achievement at work or a new skill learned. And finally, can we see that when things get tough, rituals can help us? In the midst of a challenging transition, or when a mistake has been made, or when an argument or a tantrum has taken place, creating rituals that give voice to the fear or the disappointment or the anger can help you and your family smooth over the rough spot, help reconnect you to what matters most: your relationships, the love you can nurture, the life you can share. Again, in creating rituals, simple is best. Every ritual has 3 basic parts. It's very simple, really: a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is typically a few simple words or a sound or an action. It's what enables everyone to know that it is time to focus, that something special is about to happen. Think of turning out the lights and lighting the candles on the cake at the start of a birthday celebration. Then comes the action, ritual words or activity, music or food. For the birthday, this is when we sing as the cake is brought out. And finally, the integration, the time of acknowledging what just happened, either through a simple statement of gratitude or a hug or an amen, or in the birthday example, the blowing out of the candles and the cheer that ensues. There's no question that creating and sustaining traditions takes effort. But as Meg Cox says, if you enter into ritual making with an understanding of its awesome multiple benefits, you will never want to stop. And I wonder, why would we? Who among us wouldn't want more love and wonder in our lives? Who wouldn't want to celebrate our living and grow our connections with others more often? Who wouldn't want to have more ritual and tradition of this sort, which I've seen described as human life lived in capital letters? I'm grateful for this month's topic, for helping me turn around and open my eyes to the rituals and the traditions that are already part of my life and the ones that may yet come. And I hope, even in a small way, you have felt invited today to think about your life in this way too, that perhaps you may have reason to turn around and to see all that your life already holds. I appreciate this excerpt from a poem by William Stafford. It kind of feels like a blessing on my reflection today. He writes, "Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found, carry into evening all that you want from this day, this interval you spent. Keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now, starting here, right in this room, right in the families of your lives, whatever shape and size they are? What can anyone give you greater than now when you turn around?" In the days to come, may each of us turn around more often and see, truly see, the beauty within and among us. And may we create and sustain traditions truly worth passing on.